This week is Furiosa and Garfield, and everyone's trying to find a name. Well, it's simple. It's Furiosa week, so let's get furry.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I hate everything about that. And I hate Mondays, even though it's Wednesday. What's up, Flick fans? Let's talk about Garfield. This is the brand new animated movie starring Chris Pratt and Samuel L. Jackson. Let's do it.
Wait here, Junior. I'll be right back.
After Garfield's unexpected reunion with his long-lost father, Vic, he and his canine friend Odie are forced from their perfectly pampered lives to join Vic on a risky heist. Also, if you all saw my tease, something big is coming. Go over to the Patreon page right now to check it out and follow our new YouTube channel. What? And this movie surrounding the Monday-hating, lasagna-loving cat is rated PG, of course, for action, peril, and mild thematic elements, and the animation is more up-to-date with what we're used to from these films that are kind of, I don't want to say consistently changing the game, but I actually really like the art style and animation in this movie, the way the characters move, the over-exaggerated elements that feel very Looney Tunes-esque, and the way the action sequences are handled. Yeah, it's Garfield, why are we getting an action sequence? But it still looks really good. I was kind of riveted at points by the visuals, especially my personal favorite part of the movie, when we get a little bit of that Garfield backstory. The story of when he first meets his soon-to-be owner, John, that really ties in well with the backstory between he and his father, and that's a sad, emotional touch to this movie that I really enjoyed. And that's why the first 10 to 15 minutes, I'm sitting back going, all right, we're starting. And look, I'm not fully comparing this to a Pixar movie, but on a Pixar-ish note of you set the emotional bar fairly high, kind of like Up did, uniting a pet with his owner. And yeah, there's a sad touch because his father's no longer there. He's not dead. Don't rest in peace.
What you say?
But the way they meet in that Italian restaurant, kind of, I guess, a backstory for why Garfield loves lasagna and apparently pasta and all of the other things that were on the table. But that's a very cute moment. I was really digging this movie after 15 minutes. Unfortunately, you know I've got to be a Debbie Downer. After that, it turns into a fairly conventional animated film where there's a heist and some action scenes, and it felt like they didn't really know what to do with Garfield. See, Garfield, on the panels where a lot of people knew him growing up, there were a lot of really fun adventures, but they kept it simple. They kept the heart and integrity of the character and allowing him to do things that were just small scale and short-lived. And every time I watch a Garfield movie, whether it be the live-action ones with Bill Murray or now this one with Chris Pratt, it feels like they just don't know what to do with the character. And because they didn't really know what to do with Garfield here, and were introducing us to his family, and yes, that backstory, which was beautiful, but as that moves along and he spends more time with his father, and those were the scenes that kind of kept me entertained in this movie because of the, I guess, the chemistry, the voice chemistry between Samuel L. Jackson and Chris Pratt. A lot of people are going to be saying, well, Austin, Chris Pratt's just being Chris Pratt. No, he didn't show a magnificent amount of range in this movie. Could they have cast someone a little bit more dynamic in that way that reminded us more of the Garfield that many of us grew up with? Of course they could have, but they needed the star power. And yeah, is that kind of upsetting in a way? But Chris Pratt does a nice job. But then again, he doesn't have to do too much with his voice to kind of sound like Garfield would, but those scenes between he and Samuel L. Jackson's father figure character are fun, but surrounding those scenes and surrounding those moments are these big, bombastic, crazy when it comes to scale scenes and moments and sequences that don't necessarily feel like they belong in a Garfield movie. They feel like they belong more in an action-adventure animated film. Why would you do that to Garfield? Why does Garfield need that other than just not being able to come up with the simplistic story that utilizes our furry, lasagna-loving, Monday-hating friend? We're also really not getting a lot of time with John here, voiced by Nicholas Hoult. And you could say, well, Austin, we've seen the Garfield and John story before. Yeah, but if you switch it up in a way that makes it slightly inventive but keep the integrity of that relationship, then that's fine. I'm okay with that. And these scenes and moments you get in the trailer where Garfield's eating the lasagna and John's scraping the cheese for him, that's the picture behind me, that's few and far in between. in the film. And that was slightly disappointing because I, as someone who likes Garfield as a character, was looking forward to those classic Garfield moments, getting a lot of what Garfield's character actually is, and it's his mood, his personality, his dry sense of humor, that type of thing, which we kind of get. But it feels like this movie is so overstuffed that it looks past Garfield and tries to focus on the mission at hand and this train heist and some of these sequences where we're introduced to a plethora of new characters and a plethora of family members and some things that they introduce that they just don't really choose to focus on. And that was really disappointing. Now, the target audience of Garfield, this Garfield movie, is going to be kids. And do I think it will hit that target audience? Absolutely. But some people think that a kids movie and a family movie is the same thing. See, I often see family films that hold a little bit for adults, a little bit for kids, but they find a nice balance of the two. I wouldn't look at this film and say, well, it's a family, it's the perfect family film, because I feel as if some adults are going to take their kids and they're just going to be so unconvinced by this very cliche and familiar adventure that they're going to tune out. And ultimately, what does that make it? It makes it a kids movie, and that's fine. But when you have a big-time studio feature like this with Chris Pratt and Samuel L. Jackson, going to theater by myself. It was a screening, but still, it's like my daughter's not old enough yet. But when she gets old enough, she will go with me.
You're lame!
I'm looking for more. I'm looking for something a bit more creative. And don't say, well, they don't have to do that, Austin. It's a kid's movie. Well, you say that, but I've seen kids' movies that ultimately turn into family films because they are creative with the story. They introduce fascinating characters. They have dynamic relationships, and the emotions are often beautiful in those types of films. Disney, Pixar, DreamWorks, we get them from all of those studios. But this ultimately has some nice emotional moments at the beginning with that backstory, but their adventure was something that eventually I just kind of tuned out of, did not care about the story, did not care about the side characters. Garfield is fine, but we don't get enough of that Garfield personality. And Odie, who is always just kind of there, but there's a little bit of heart in there, is just kind of there in this movie, but more in the background. And I miss John. So really miss some elements in this movie that could have ultimately made it, because of that potential and because of that beautiful animation, a classic Garfield adventure. Unfortunately, it's just a big series of conventions and cliches, and all of those classic Garfield moments you get in the trailer, well, that's really almost all there is in the entire movie. Austin, you need to chill out, buddy. It's just Garfield. I know, so I need to know your thoughts down below. Did you enjoy this more than I did? Were you swept away by the adventure? But most importantly, when it comes to a movie like this, did the kids enjoy it? Did your children enjoy it? Did someone else's children enjoy it? If you know that, then why were you paying attention to somebody else's kid? Garfield will deliver some entertaining moments for most kids. They will have a good time. The overstuffed plot features plenty of heists and explosions, but Garfield gets lost in the madness. Most of his development revolves around his relationship with his dad, which begins on a sweet note but slowly becomes repetitive and predictable. It did not quite land for me, but there are some things to admire about this film, the animation style being one of them. So what was your favorite part of the movie when it comes to the animation? Was it one of those montages, the backstory, which I found to be very sweet, or the ending? Thank you so much for watching. You know what week it is. It's Furiosa week, so we're gonna get furry. That's weird. All right, see you in the next video.